You ever have one of those moments where everything you thought was true just crumbles? Yeah, that happened to me. And trust me, it wasn't some slow, gradual realization either. It hit me like a freight train. One moment I'm sipping coffee on my porch, admiring the autumn leaves, and the next, I'm staring at documents that made my entire life feel like a lie. My name is Evelyn Monroe, and until recently, I thought I had it all figured out. A thriving career in real estate, a gorgeous home in Nashville, and a husband who looked good on paper but felt, well, empty in real life. 4 years, I convinced myself that staying married to Ryan was about keeping up appearances. But deep down, I knew something was off. It started with little things, like how he'd disappear for hours into his home office without explanation, or how his phone always seemed glued to his hand. Then came the arguments over money. Not fights about spending too much, mind you, but weird stuff like why we never talked about our savings anymore. And don't even get me started on the way he acted around other women at parties. Flirty, charming, completely different from the man I shared a bed with every night. But none of that prepared me for what I found in his locked drawer last week. Offshore accounts. Strange company names I'd never heard of before. And worst of all, a single piece of paper with the words, "Do not trace," scribbled across the top. That's when I realized I didn't know my own husband. So here I am now, sitting in my kitchen, trying to figure out how my perfect on the outside life became such a mess. Little did I know, this was only the beginning. Let me backtrack a little. Before I found those documents in Ryan's study, I thought I was just dealing with your typical midlife marriage slump. You know, the kind where you share space but not much else. We weren't fighting constantly, or anything dramatic like that. In fact, most people would have called us lucky. But here's the thing about facades. They only work when no one looks too closely. Take our dinner parties, for example. On the surface, we were the golden couple. Ryan would charm everyone with his stories about tech startups and international clients, while I played the gracious hostess, making sure everyone had enough wine and hors d'oeuvres. What they didn't see was how Ryan barely acknowledged me during those evenings. He'd laugh at jokes made by other women, linger just a little too long during conversations, and never once introduce me as his wife, unless someone asked directly. And then there was the night everything changed, or at least started to. It was supposed to be a casual get-together with friends, nothing fancy. But halfway through dessert, Ryan got an urgent phone call. He excused himself abruptly, muttering something about work emergencies, and disappeared into his office. Curious, and maybe a little suspicious, I followed him, not to eavesdrop, mind you, but to check if everything was okay. That's when I saw it, the look on his face. His usual calm demeanor was gone, replaced by tension so thick I could practically feel it across the room. Whoever he was talking to wasn't delivering good news. When he finally hung up, he caught me standing there. For a split second, I saw guilt flash in his eyes. Then it vanished, replaced by irritation. "What?" he snapped, brushing past me. And that's when I realized something was very, very wrong. After that night, things between Ryan and I went from strained to downright icy. Every conversation felt like walking on eggshells, and every unanswered question gnawed at me until I couldn't take it anymore. So, naturally, I did what any rational person would do. I called Sarah, my lawyer friend. Sarah's always been blunt, which is exactly what I needed. Over coffee at our favorite cafe, I spilled everything. The weird phone calls, the distant behavior, the locked drawer I hadn't opened yet. She listened quietly, stirring her latte, before leaning in and saying, "Evelyn, honey, you need to protect yourself. If there's even a hint of financial funny business, gather evidence before you file for divorce." Her words scared me, not because I thought Ryan was capable of anything illegal, but because deep down, I already suspected he was hiding something. That evening, after he left for another business trip, I finally worked up the courage to pick the lock on his desk drawer. Inside, I found folders filled with unfamiliar company names, offshore account numbers, and cryptic notes scribbled in shorthand. None of it made sense, but one thing was clear. This wasn't normal. That's when I decided I couldn't stay married to a man I didn't recognize anymore. Whether he was guilty of something or not, I deserved answers. And if that meant risking everything, so be it. 2 days later, I was cooking dinner when there was a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I peeked through the peephole first. Standing on my porch were two men in dark suits, classic FBI vibes. My stomach dropped. "Ms. Monroe," one of them said, flashing a badge. "I'm Agent Harper, and this is Agent Morales. May we come in?" I nodded dumbly, stepping aside to let them in. They didn't waste time with pleasantries. Instead, they got straight to the point. Ryan was under investigation for money laundering tied to a major crime syndicate. Apparently, his name had popped up during their probe into several shell companies. My head spun. Money laundering? Crime syndicates? This wasn't just some shady tax loophole, it was serious stuff. When they asked if I knew anything, I hesitated. Should I tell them about the documents? Would they think I was involved? Finally, I admitted I'd found something suspicious, but hadn't understood its significance. Agent Harper gave me a long look, like he was trying to decide whether to believe me. Before they left, Agent Morales handed me a card. "If you remember anything else, or if you feel unsafe, call us immediately." Safe? I hadn't felt safe since finding that damn drawer. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. Every shadow looked like a lurking figure. I kept replaying the agent's visit in my head, wondering how deep Ryan's involvement really went. Was he just a pawn in someone else's scheme? Or was he the mastermind? The next morning, I decided to dig deeper. With Sarah's help, I started combing through the documents, looking for anything that might connect Ryan to the syndicate. Meanwhile, I reached out to Marcus, an old college friend who worked in cybersecurity. He agreed to analyze the files remotely, but warned me that poking around could put me in danger. "You're playing with fire, Evie," he said over the phone. "These aren't amateurs we're dealing with." "I don't care," I shot back. "I need to know the truth." Truth. Such a simple word, yet it felt impossibly far away. When Ryan came home the next evening, I was ready for him. Not physically. I wasn't about to start throwing punches, but mentally. I'd spend hours rehearsing what I wanted to say, how I'd demand answers without giving away that I'd already talked to the FBI. But as soon as he walked through the door, calm and collected like nothing was wrong, my anger bubbled over. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "Work," he replied, barely glancing at me as he hung up his coat. "Why? What's wrong?" "Oh, I don't know, Ryan," I snapped. "Maybe it's the fact that 2 FBI agents showed up at our house yesterday asking questions about you." For a split second, he froze. Then he laughed, a cold, dismissive laugh that sent chills down my spine. "You've got to be kidding me," he said. "Look, Evie, this is just some misunderstanding. Trust me, okay? You're overreacting." Overreacting. My blood boiled. How dare he accuse me of being irrational when he was the one hiding offshore accounts and dodging federal investigators? I pressed harder, demanding explanations, but he shut me down completely. "If you've done something illegal," I started, but he cut me off. "Illegal? Are you serious right now?" He shook his head, his tone icy. "You have no idea what you're talking about. Stay out of this, Evelyn. For your own good." His words hit me like a slap. For my own good? That's when I knew I couldn't trust him anymore. Whatever secrets he was keeping weren't just dangerous, they were toxic, and I refused to let them destroy me. After Ryan stormed out later that night, claiming he needed space, I called Marcus again. This time, I gave him full access to the files I'd found in Ryan's desk. While waiting for his analysis, I did some digging of my own. Late at night, after Ryan had gone to bed, or rather pretended to sleep, I snuck into his office and went through his laptop. Password protected, of course, but thanks to an old trick Sarah taught me, I managed to bypass it. What I found made my stomach churn. Emails referencing transfers, clients, and off-the-books deals. Conversations with people whose names I didn't recognize but who clearly weren't ordinary business partners. One email stood out. "The package is secure. Proceed as planned." Package? What package? I copied everything onto a USB drive, careful not to leave any trace behind. By the time I crawled back into bed, my hands were shaking, not just from exhaustion, but from fear. Fear of what Ryan might do if he found out. Fear of what the syndicate might do if they discovered I was onto them. But also determination. Determination to take back control of my life. A few days passed, and things seemed eerily quiet. Too quiet. Ryan acted normal, or as normal as he could be given the circumstances, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. Every time I left the house, I swore I saw the same black sedan parked down the street. Once, while grocery shopping, I caught a man staring at me from across the aisle. When I turned to confront him, he disappeared into the crowd. Then came the text message. It appeared on my phone late one night, sent from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." My heart raced. I deleted the message immediately, but the damage was done. Whoever sent it knew I was investigating Ryan. Knew I was getting close to something big. Sarah urged me to go straight to the FBI, but I hesitated. If they thought I was involved, even indirectly, I could end up in just as much trouble as Ryan. Instead, I doubled down on precautions. I started carrying pepper spray everywhere, avoided staying home alone, and even considered moving temporarily. But deep down, I knew running wouldn't solve anything. The only way out was through. As paranoia set in, I began questioning everyone around me, even Sarah. She'd been my best friend since college, but lately, she'd been acting strange. Was she avoiding certain topics? Did she know more than she was letting on? I hated myself for doubting her, but I couldn't help it. Paranoia has a way of poisoning everything. One afternoon, while meeting Sarah for coffee, I decided to test her. "Do you think I should tell the FBI about the emails?" I asked casually. Her eyes widened slightly before she recovered. "Absolutely. They need to know everything you found." But there was something in her tone, a hesitation, that stuck with me long after we parted ways. Had she already told them? Or worse, was she trying to protect me from something bigger? That night, unable to sleep, I scrolled through old photos on my phone. Pictures of Ryan and me smiling at parties, vacations, birthdays. Back then, I believed we were happy. Now, looking at those images felt like staring at ghosts. Ghosts of a life I'd never truly lived. Things took a darker turn when Marcus went silent. One day, he was texting me updates about the files. The next, his phone went straight to voicemail. I tried not to panic. Maybe he was just busy, but something felt off. Finally, unable to ignore my gut, I drove to his apartment after work. What I found made my knees buckle. His door was slightly ajar, the lock busted open. Inside, the place was trashed, papers scattered everywhere, furniture overturned. My heart pounded as I called his name, but there was no answer. On the floor near his desk, I spotted a familiar USB drive. The one I'd given him with Ryan's files. It had been smashed to pieces. That's when I realized whoever was after me had gotten to Marcus first. Whether he was hurt, or worse, I didn't know. But standing in that wrecked apartment, I felt a cold certainty settle over me. I wasn't safe anymore. No one close to me was. The next morning, I couldn't shake the image of Marcus's ruined apartment from my mind. Who were these people? How far would they go to protect their secrets? And most importantly, what did Ryan really know? I decided to take matters into my own hands. Armed with the copies of the emails I'd saved on my laptop, I spent hours piecing together clues. That's when I stumbled upon something chilling, a recording buried deep within Ryan's email attachments. It was short, barely 30 seconds long, but it changed everything. Ryan's voice came through loud and clear. "The funds are ready for transfer. Make sure the offshore accounts stay clean." My hands trembled as I replayed it. There was no denying it now. Ryan wasn't just involved, he was orchestrating this whole operation. And if I didn't act fast, I might become collateral damage. Later that night, paranoia gripped me like never before. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. Shadows seemed alive, shifting menacingly in the corners of my vision. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the USB drive containing the incriminating evidence. What should I do with it? Hand it over to the FBI? Hide it somewhere only I could find? Then, headlights flashed through the living room window. Bright beams cut through the darkness outside. My breath hitched. Who would be driving around my neighborhood this late? Peering through the blinds, I saw an unfamiliar black SUV parked across the street. Two men stepped out, their silhouettes sharp against the glow of the streetlights. Panic surged through me. Without thinking, I grabbed the USB drive, shoved it into a hollow book on my shelf, a trick I'd picked up from old spy movies, and dialed 911. As I barricaded myself in the bathroom, clutching a can of pepper spray like my life depended on it, I heard the front door being forced open. This was it. They were inside. Adrenaline kicked in. I slipped out through the hidden side exit Dad had installed years ago, a narrow door leading to the backyard. My bare feet sank into damp grass as I ran toward the woods behind my property. The air smelled crisp, like autumn leaves and wood smoke, but I barely noticed. All I cared about was getting away. Branches whipped at my arms and legs as I pushed deeper into the forest. Behind me, I heard shouts. "Where is she?" one of them growled. My heart thundered in my chest. I didn't stop until I reached the old oak tree where Emma and I used to have picnics. Crouching behind it, I tried to catch my breath, listening for any sign they'd followed me. That's when I heard his voice. Ryan. Calm, calculating, discussing plans as if this were just another business meeting. "If you find her, don't hurt her too badly," he said. "We need that drive." Betrayal sliced through me like a knife. This wasn't just some stranger hunting me down. It was my husband. The man who promised to love me forever. Talking about hurting me like it meant nothing. Tears blurred my vision, but I forced myself to stay quiet. Crying wouldn't save me now. As I huddled behind the tree, reality hit me harder than ever. Ryan wasn't just complicit, he was calling the shots. He greeted the two men casually, laughing like this was all some twisted game. When one of them mentioned searching the woods, Ryan shrugged. "She won't get far," he said. "Not dressed like that." "Dressed like what?" I glanced down at my sweatpants and tank top, realizing how vulnerable I truly was. No shoes, no phone, no plan beyond survival instinct. For the first time, I allowed myself to cry, not because I was scared, but because I was angry. Angry at Ryan, at myself, at the universe for letting this happen. But crying wouldn't fix anything. So I wiped my tears, stood up, and whispered to myself, "No regrets." If Ryan thought he could break me, he was wrong. Dead wrong. Just as I prepared to make another run for it, headlights pierced through the trees again. This time, though, they weren't alone. They were accompanied by sirens. Agent Harper's voice crackled over a megaphone. "FBI! Drop your weapons and step away." Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. I wanted to scream, to run toward them, but I stayed frozen in place. Ryan shouted something angry, and there was scuffling, shouting, and then silence. A few minutes later, an officer found me hiding by the oak tree. His flashlight blinded me at first, but once he realized who I was, he helped me up. "You're safe now, ma'am," he said softly. Safe? Did that even mean anything anymore? When I saw Ryan in handcuffs, being led to a squad car, part of me wanted to march over and slap him. Another part, the weaker, more vulnerable part, wanted to ask why. Why had he done this? Was our marriage just a cover for his crimes? Instead, I turned away. Asking questions wouldn't change the truth. Ryan Monroe wasn't the man I thought he was. And maybe neither was I. Back at the FBI safe house, Agent Harper explained just how dangerous the syndicate really was. "They don't play games," he warned. "If they think you know anything, or worse, if they suspect you have evidence, you're not just a target anymore. You're a liability. Liability. That word echoed in my head long after Harper left the room. Liability. Not a person. Not a victim. Just a loose end to tie up. Suddenly, staying in Nashville felt impossible. The agent suggested witness protection, a fresh start under a new identity. At first, I resisted. Leave everything behind. Start over. But then I remembered Marcus's apartment, the black SUV, Ryan's betrayal. What choice did I have? So I agreed. Reluctantly. Painfully. But I agreed. Testifying against Ryan was the hardest decision I've ever made. Sitting in that courtroom, watching him sit stoically beside his lawyer, I felt exposed. Vulnerable. Like everyone could see the cracks in my armor. But when I took the stand and recounted everything, from finding the documents to confronting him, I felt something else. Power. For the first time, I wasn't running. I was fighting back. The verdict came quickly, guilty on multiple counts of money laundering and conspiracy. As Ryan was led away in shackles, I felt a mix of relief and sorrow. Justice had been served, but at what cost? My marriage was gone. My sense of safety shattered. And yet, I survived. Somehow I survived. Witness protection relocated me to a small coastal town in Maine. Here, I'm not Evelyn Monroe anymore. I'm Claire Bennett, owner of a modest real estate office catering to retirees and summer tourists. It's peaceful here, quiet, predictable. Exactly what I needed after everything I'd been through. But peace doesn't erase scars. Nightmares still haunt me. Shadows still make me flinch. Some days, I wonder if I'll ever truly feel free. Yet, bit by bit, I'm learning to rebuild, to trust myself again. One day, while browsing local art galleries, I met Mia, a painter whose vibrant canvases caught my eye. We struck up a conversation, and soon we became friends. Mia reminded me of Sarah, warm, genuine, unafraid to call me out when I needed it. Through her, I rediscovered joy, creativity, life beyond fear. Mia encouraged me to try painting. At first, I laughed it off. I hadn't touched a brush since childhood. But one rainy afternoon, she handed me a canvas and said, "Paint whatever feels right." So I did. What emerged surprised even me. Bold strokes, vivid colors, raw emotion. Painting became therapy, a way to process everything I'd lost and everything I hoped to gain. Despite my progress, danger lingered in the periphery. Once, while walking along the beach, I spotted a man watching me from afar. He disappeared quickly, but the encounter reignited old fears. Had the syndicate found me? Was I still in danger? Agent Harper assured me the FBI was monitoring potential threats. Still, I knew I might never truly feel safe again. But instead of letting fear consume me, I chose to focus on what I could control: my life, my choices, my future. Months later, Sarah sent me a letter updating me on Ryan's trial. Several syndicate members had been arrested, including high-ranking officials. Reading the news brought a strange sense of closure. Justice wasn't perfect, but it was something. That night, sitting by the fire, I wrote a letter to myself. In it, I forgave Ryan, not for his sake, but for mine. Holding on to anger would only weigh me down. Letting go didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing to live, fully moving forward. Spring arrived in Maine, bringing warmer days and longer evenings. One sunny morning, I planted a tree in my backyard, a symbol of growth, resilience, hope. As I patted soil around its roots, I realized something. I wasn't the same woman who'd fled Nashville